Hey there everybody, Sage Popham here, founder of the School of Evolutionary Herbalism. And in this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about alcohol. We as herbalists tend to rely pretty heavily these days on alcohol as one of our main ways for extracting and preserving the medicinal properties of plants, right? I think herbal tinctures are probably one of the most commonly used forms of herbal medicine by herbalists. And so what's the deal with alcohol, right? What's the best type of alcohol to use? What is there a difference between organic or inorganic alcohol? Is there a benefit to using high proof alcohol, low proof alcohol? Like, how can we figure out what the best type of alcohol to use is? And so that's what the topic of this week's post is all about, is about alcohol and some of my perspectives on alcohol and what the best form to use is to make the best herbal medicine, as well as some perspectives on the alchemical tradition of alcohol. You know, we tend to think of it in modern herbalism as, you know, oh, alcohol is just great for dissolving herbal constituents and it preserves things very well. They last indefinitely if the percentage is higher than 30%. But what about some of the traditional perspectives of alcohol? Specifically, why do we refer to distilled alcohol as spirits? And that is something that I was unaware of until I came across the alchemical and spagyric tradition. So I hope you enjoy this discussion this week on alcohol and its role in herbal medicine. All right, question number 2 from Jana Taylor is asking, I see most herbalists using Everclear to make their tinctures. I understand that this is because of the high alcohol content, but doesn't the energy of the distillation make a difference in our medicine? Also, this alcohol is not organic, which makes me uncomfortable. What would you suggest for the alcohol for tincture, and do you feel like commercial non-organic vodka is really the best option? Really great question, Jana. Yeah, so you're correct. Most herbalists do use Everclear 95% alcohol, primarily because it is such a high proof, and then from there can be diluted down to get to the correct percentage range and ratio of alcohol to water to suit the specific biochemical profile of that plant. So it just gives you the most versatility, whereas you know, an off-the-shelf vodka is usually about a 40% alcohol, which is 80 proof. So proof to percent, like percent is always half the proof. So, you know, 80 proof is 40%. So for those of y'all that didn't know that, that's kind of how that calculation happens. It's luckily very simple and straightforward. So that's one of the main reasons why people use 95%. It gives you the most versatility. If you're buying a 40% vodka, you're kind of stuck, right? You can't get higher than 40% unless you're adding a stronger proof alcohol to the vodka, which wouldn't make sense. You would just use the higher proof alcohol to make your tincture anyways. You know, a lot of medicinal plants tend to respond pretty well, especially if they're dried medicinal plants, tend to respond pretty well to a mid-range proof alcohol. You know, 40-50% alcohol generally is going to give you, I'm going to say, a decent extraction of most dried medicinal plants. Of course, there's exceptions to that. Some you want actually less than 40%, some you definitely want higher than 40%, and 40% is not ideal. In that latter example, the main compounds that do not extract well in 40% alcohol are going to be plants that are very rich in resins and very rich in volatile or essential oils. Those types of plants, or fresh plants, right? Fresh plants, you gotta use something higher than 40% because simply all the water content in the plant is going to dilute your alcohol down. Depending on the herb, that could dilute it down to a point where it's actually potentially not even preserving the tincture all the way. So the volatile oils and the resins are the constituents that you really want a higher percentage alcohol. You know, a lot of your aromatic mints, your thyme, oregano, rosemary, tulsi, peppermint, a lot of your very resinous, oftentimes we see resinous like expectorants, the stimulant expectorants in the lungs, things like your lomatium, your osha, your balsam poplar, your gumweed, a lot of your evergreen plants, your cedars, your pines. All of those plants really prefer a much higher percentage alcohol to properly extract those volatile constituents. So in that way, this is why Everclear is really preferable. On that note, though, most Everclear, as you noted, is not organic, and I know that's a lot of that's an issue for a lot of folks. I obviously prefer organic anything, everything when it's possible, and it is difficult to find organic alcohol. But there is a company out of Ashland, Oregon they used to be called Alchemical Solutions. Now they're just the Organic Alcohol Company. They nailed it on the URL of their website, which is organicalcohol.com. And you can order spirits from them and get them shipped out to you. Depending on what state you live in, if you're in the United States, you might have to get a permit in order to obtain a 95% alcohol. I live in Washington State and we do require permits. I think it's like a $10 permit for the year through the state. It's super simple to get. And you just say you're using it to make tinctures and they issue it, no problem. It's very simple. So yeah, I think organic 95% alcohol from Alchemical Solutions is the best alcohol out on the market. I think the next best thing in line would be potentially to just distill your own alcohol. Obviously, that's a lot of work, but that is a really great way to go about it for any of you that are into the alchemical tradition and the spagyric tradition that I'm always talking about and teaching. That is a big part of the spagyric process, right? Is distilling your own alcohol. And that is preferable when preparing alchemical and spagyric medicines because you can have spirits that are distilled in accordance with the particular planetary aspect that you're working with. So, if you're working with rosemary, you want to make a rosemary tincture. And if you're distilling all your own alcohol, well, you can have a sun distilled spirit, right? Where that spirit was fermented and all the distillations happened in accordance with the planetary timing of the sun. And so that spirit is kind of attuned to the resonance of the sun and so forth with Mercury and Mars and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn, etc. So that is one way that you can, kind of one of the benefits of distilling your own alcohol from more of an alchemical or spagyric perspective is that alcohol now is much more attuned to the planetary power that you are ultimately harvesting in alchemical and spagyric works. And you mentioned in your question there, the energy of distillation make a difference in our medicine. Yeah, it absolutely does. And again, I think that's why distilling your own alcohol is preferable because you're able to really refine the subtle energetics of that alcohol. It's a spirit, right? And I think it's really interesting that we use the word spirits to refer to a distilled alcohol. And I remember it always kind of confused me when I was younger. People say, oh, they're spirits. And I was like, what? Like, why do we call alcohol spirits? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, And I think, at the time in my life, I kind of had certain ideas of what spiritual meant. And I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like I've been to a bar before and saw a lot of people drinking a lot of spirits and it didn't seem that spiritual to me, And that was, of course, before I was familiar with the alchemical tradition. And that's because, according to alchemy, they see that alcohol is the universal spirit of the plant kingdom. Spirit or Mercury in alchemy is like the vital force. It's there's one spirit that moves through all things, right? Whereas individual beings have kind of their own individual soul, but there's that one animating spirit, that one animating life force. And in the plant kingdom, that spirit is in the alcohol. And the reason for that is because if you take any plant and you submerge it in water, you drown it in water, basically, right? A bucket of water, it will always ferment to produce a certain amount of ethyl alcohol. And so the alchemist saw this, all of these plants produce this volatile substance, this alcohol that's lighter than water, right? You distill it, the alcohol comes over first, so it's lighter and it's clear and it's vaporous and it's kind of sharp and penetrating and pungent and it affects your consciousness, right? And so they saw that as, this is the spirit of the plant kingdom, is that alcohol. So that's kind of where that term spirits comes from. And because it's a spirit, it's subtle, it's in a way, it's immaterial, it's impressionable. And this is why in alchemy, the process of distilling spirits is very delicate and very refined and is a very done with presence and awareness and intention in order for that spirit, that distilled spirit, to be very pure and very clean, both on a physical level, but also on a more subtle, energetic or spiritual level too. So yeah, just a little, some notes there on preferred alcohol to use in your tincture making process. So again, 95% organic alcohol is your best. Distilling your own is next in line. But obviously, if the only thing you can get is, an over-the-counter 40% vodka, it'll do, right? And it may not be the best for some plants, but you will still draw out a portion of the medicinal compounds in the plant and have a relatively effective medicine. So thanks for the question, Jana. I hope that helped you out.